quite a few of my fans have said, look, could I run through my various novels just to get an idea of what they are and what the series are? So I will do as quickly as I can. I started with Snowy Lane in City of Light. That's set in Perth in 1979. Snowy's a young cop, and this goes over 10 years, this book, so it's quite an intricate plot. Snowy Lane then reappears in Clear to the Horizon some years later, and I'll get back to that. So there's the two Snowy Lane books. I have got a third sort of going around in my brain at the moment, but it's not out yet. My next book after I did City of Light was this one here, Big Bad Blood, and that features set in Sydney in 1965, very complex plot. Features two detectives, John Gordon and Ray Shearer, and they appear in my most recent book. It took me 25 years, but I came up with a plot that was worthy of them. Summer of Blood. This is set at the Summer of Love, 1967, in San Francisco. Shearer and Gordon are asked to go to America to try and find a young Australian guy who's gone missing. After that came Espresso. This is kind of a bit more of a fun, convoluted story where everybody pulls together. I guess you could think of a bit of an Elmore Leonard set in Kalgoorlie for that one. There's only the one book of these characters, although I have got another one in my mind, and there is also in my short stories, briefly, there's a short story using the same characters, Rick Bosky and Goose, from this one. So briefly, the short story has one of those too. Okay, on to kind of my more modern times. I spent a lot of time writing television scripts, took about 10 years off, and then I got back into writing with Detective Dan Clement. Before It Breaks, set up in the Kimberley. This was kind of before the Outback Noir. It was one of the early ones of the Outback Noir, at least. And Dan Clement is a cop taking having to control the vast Kimberley region of Australia, which is like about the size of Texas, just about. And that was the first book. In the second book, Dan Clement teams up with Snowy Lane. Remember I mentioned him, the first one, in Clear to the Horizon, set up in the Kimberley. And then the third book is After the Flood, also set up in the Kimberley with Dan Clement. And this year in November, that's 2024 in November, Dan Clement will be out with a new adventure set in the Kimberley called When It Rains. One-offs, River of Salt, one of my favourites, set in 1961 and 63, starts in Philadelphia when a hitman wants to escape his life there, and he comes to the northern New South Wales, sort of southern Queensland area, and sets up in an idyllic beach. Lots of riffs on surf music and stuff in that, but as I say, one of my little favourites, that one. And hang on, I've got my Sherlock Holmes one somewhere. Over My Dead Body. Where did I put? Oh, here we go. Over My Dead Body. This is a kind of the idea that Sherlock Holmes is revived by the great-great-granddaughter of John Watson and starts to investigate crime in New York City in 2020. So you've kind of got a bit of a time warp there. It's the old Holmes, who's 166 years old, as he says by now, with Watson there. A little bit of a romance too in that one. And they also reappear in a short story in Briefly, if you're interested in that. There's 13 short stories in Briefly. This gets me down to Andrew the Lizard Zirk. These are kind of more light reading. Andrew the Lizard Zirk is a rock musician who's decided he doesn't want to play anymore. Think of David Bowie meets Sherlock Holmes. And he has a chauffeur, Fleur. These take place in Sydney. Murder in the Groove was the first one, 20 years over, but they've now been reissued, the whole three of them. Murder in the Frame and Murder in the Off-Season, and you can get those on places like Booktopia or from my website, davewarner.com.au. And finally, if you say, look, I'm not interested in fiction much, but I do like a bit of non-fiction, and especially if you like Australian rules, this is a story, a biography I wrote with Marlon Pickett, AFL footballer, Indigenous AFL footballer who just has had an unbelievable life. And it's called Belief, about Marlon, how his first ever AFL league game he actually played in the grand final, first player in 100 years to do it. Not only that, the team won, but I won't give too many spoilers on that. Look, that's been a quick run through. Go to my website if you'd like, davewarner.com.au, or try YouTube. I'll put this up there, and hopefully that helps a bit. And thanks for your support.